Hello everyone, welcome to Homeschool Autism Life. My name is Jamie. Today's video, as you can see by the title, is really for family or extended family and friends who are trying to help. Most of the time they have the best of intentions, sometimes not, but at the same time may not be necessarily helpful or understanding of certain situations. We in the autism community often talk about, unless you have a child with autism, you really do not understand. And you really have to kind of live with that family. I'm not suggesting that, but you really kind of need to live in that family space for an extended amount of time in order for you to really truly grasp all of the idiosyncrasies and all of the things that a parent has to remember and all of the things that happen when we don't remember. It can just be a lot. And so sometimes, and I can say we've been very blessed, thankfully, with my family. And our family and our friends, for the most part, that we haven't had too many issues or struggles. But I've heard several other families talk about just the frustration that they have, not just with dealing with life with special needs, but also an over helpful or family member who knows what should be done in this circumstance and that, and is so frustrated with their child or their family member who's dealing with this on a personal level because their child has autism and they're just not following my instructions, and if they just did, then there wouldn't be any problem. So I wanted to make this video in the event that you are struggling with that, and not from a place of judgment or meanness, but just letting a family member know what it actually looks like from an outside perspective, but somebody who's dealt with some of those issues, and just explain it from a perspective without all of the emotional issues that come with a family member. Like, you can share this video with somebody, and if they're open to truly being helpful or understanding, then they hear it. And so I just wanted to really specifically talk to those people. So hello, dear extended family members peeking. That is my autistic son, and he's 15 years old, and he has issues with English words and wants to talk his moon language, and mommy and daddy and everyone else has to as well. I wanted to extend a welcome to you watching this video. I know that you love your special family members who have special needs and the parents who are doing that job. And I wanted to give a few little tips when it comes to just wanting to be a help to them, but also struggling to understand why a parent might choose certain things or do certain things when you may have read something or saw something and it worked for some child with autism, and it might work for your grandchild or your niece or nephew or whatever the situation may be. So there's one major overarching statement that is said in the autism world, and that is, if you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism, which means that if you see a video and someone says, this was the game changer, this, not eating wheat and sugar and dairy and all of that, like that changed this child's life. And that's awesome. That is so great. And we are so happy for them. But sometimes that doesn't work for another child. Our son in particular, he has a very limited diet. And if we were to take away dairy and his pasta, essentially he would eat very, very little, and we need those calories. And that's a big, 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 huge thing. It doesn't, just because one thing works for one family member or another child with autism or special needs, doesn't mean that across the board that's going to work for everyone else. So I use that as an example, but I wanted to share that because it's such an important and vital thing to understand about autism in particular, but in any sort of special needs. Some things are like your child or your family member who is taking care of their special needs child is doing the best that they can with what they have. And so it's really important to give them grace. So that's the first thing that I wanted to ask of you as you are coming alongside a family member who is dealing with something like this, that you need to offer them grace all of the time, all of the time. So, especially when they get that first diagnosis, there's going to be so much grief and so much of them just trying to wrap their heads around it. They might not know a lot about autism, they might know a bunch, but no matter what, when it happens to you and your perfect baby is suddenly somehow deficient according to the medical system or the school system, it's a punch in the gut. And there's so many times where we as parents are having to just navigate all of the feelings and the emotions and the overwhelm of, okay, what do I have to do to help my child be better? And how do I deal with, like, it's so overwhelming, and it's so just dealing. And I've heard several different stories from children who have had autism. One in particular comes to mind. It's a channel called Fathering Autism. And he talks about how his stepfather, who was a doctor, told him that his little girl had autism. He's like, I think you might want to get her tested for autism. And both the husband and the wife in this situation were actually very angry at this stepfather, and he wisely let it go. But there's so many things, so many different emotions that come when you're talking about the most important people to you, your children peaking, and you're trying to go, okay, that's not true. That's not the way it is. And throughout this process, they're going to be advocating for their child. They're going to be hitting barriers and walls while they try and deal with it. They're going to have to go, okay, we can't take our child to a normal dentist because it's not working. It's not happening. How do I get a haircut for my child? Like, all of the little easy things that we just, if you have typical children, you're like, this is easy, we're just going to do it and it's not going to be a problem, is 17 step and always adjustable as time goes on, a process. So when I say offer grace, I say it with a huge heaviness of heart, because that's what they need. They need a listening ear. They need somebody to be like, I understand how hard it is for you. Just the little bit that I see, I understand just that level. So, and I will say that as they're dealing with like the denial and the how do I deal with this and how do I deal with that, as time goes on and they live in the world of autism, of parenting for a while, a lot of those denials slowly fall by the wayside, but you have to give them grace to allow them the dignity of time to figure that kind of stuff out and to deal with, if you've ever lost someone in your life, grief is always there, right? It's a part of your life, and it's just something you have to learn how to live with and deal with. Often, this is the same sort of thing. The other thing is that parents having hope parents having hope for their children is actually a wonderful, awesome, wonderful, awesome tool that a parent has in their disposal. And the medical system and the school system often go, oh, you're blinded by love. And I think extended family can sometimes see that and feel that as well. Oh, they're just not seeing the situation clearly enough. And so they're missing out on all of these other opportunities that might help or fix or whatever. And again, I'm going to ask that you offer grace, because that hope, that there's nobody in the entirety of the world who is not invested in the success of their children. And I'm speaking broadly, and I know there are some parents who aren't like that, but for the most part, the parents are the ones who are desperately trying to find ways for their children to succeed, even our special needs kids. And so offer them grace, but don't push, like, don't, give them that whole, your life will never be the same again. You need to accept this. We heard that so many times from the medical system and the school system, and it wasn't helpful. It just wasn't helpful. What can you do? What help can you offer? Well, you offer a listening ear. And if there's something that they ask you to help with, you might not even be 100% comfortable. They might tell you, no, we can't have help because there's so many situations. We've had people offer to come and do sleepovers at our house so my husband and I can go get some sleep, and we're like, that's not going to be helpful. Number one, because I know what it's going to look like for you trying to put our son down to bed. He doesn't fall asleep until 1 or 2 in the morning. That usually babysitters aren't, that excited about that particular prospect. But also, we would go to a hotel room, but it's not our bed. We would be worrying about what's happening at home. Like, there's so many things that, again, it's the layers of things that aren't thought of when somebody goes, oh, well, you look tired. You've been tired for a really long time. You solving that problem by the version that you have of how it would be helped isn't helpful here. So the biggest thing is when they ask for help, they've thought it through. You can follow through, but most often it's just a listening ear. How are you doing today? Is there anything I can do to help? And if their answer is no, you've still offered that love and support. And that's more than an autism family often feels very isolated, because that's their life. They have to figure this out. They have to deal with it, and they don't really have a lot of other options. Another thing that you can do for help is, especially for a mama, is make a little care package. That's all stuff that's for her, that she can't go out and pamper herself, and not gift cards to like nail salons or whatever where she has to try and find a babysitter, but all stuff that she can do in her house. And she might not do it for years because she is busy just surviving. But at the same time, that thought process, it can be teas and a mug for, when she makes herself coffee, or bath salts, or like any of those kind of self-care items. Those are things that can be done. If you're talking about a dad who has a wife who could be watching the kiddos, you can say, you know what, why don't I take you for coffee on Saturday or something, so we can, just support you and love on you. Those are the things that are going to make a huge difference over, let me tell you, your child has trouble sleeping. Have you tried melatonin? Usually that's like a number one thing a parent will try at the very beginning. So if that doesn't work, they've probably tried a lot of things and went against them for a number of different reasons. Hey, buddy, you're being really loud today. The biggest thing that I can ask of extended family and friends is just to love on those families. Check in, sometimes. Not every day, not every hour, but check in and just go, I was thinking about you, or send them a card and just say, if there's anything that we can do for you, or we can pray for you, or any sort of thing like that, please don't hesitate to ask. And those little love notes, those little thoughtful, we're thinking about you, here's my number if you need anything. Would it be helpful if I brought a meal for your other family members? um, can I get you groceries? Do you need something like that? Any of those sorts of things are way more helpful than, here's an article I read about this autistic child and what her parents did, and this might be helpful for you. A lot of those things can be shared if you have an open relationship with your family and they're like, I am struggling with this specific item and I don't know what to do. Do you have any ideas? Then have at her. But also be willing to accept whatever decision they come up with. Because again, there's so multifaceted reasons why it won't work for that family, but it might work for another. So I hope you hear my heart behind this message. It is not, you are awful, horrible people because you want to help. And this is, what you read or whatever. It's more just kind of letting you know from my perspective what is actually helpful in the long term. And again, allowing your family to go through the periods of grief, the periods of survival and struggle, and just being beside them is going to make a huge difference over, well, why won't you do this? I told you to do this, that, or the other thing, and I don't understand. Like, there's so many reasons why just coming alongside is way more a support than having your own ideas when you are missing so many of the pieces that happens behind closed doors. I'm so thankful for the family members who have done that for me, who've recognized that, whether they live close or far away, that unfortunately, unless they live in my house, there's so many things that they're not fully understanding. And I've so appreciated when they're like, well, we've been praying for you. And I'm like, thank you. Because in my life, in my Christian life, I know the only help that I have that understands my son even better than I do is Jesus. And so I'm just so thankful for that. And so I hope that this message is one where you understand, if your family member has sent you this video, it's not from a place of, man, I wish that my family would stop talking to me or giving me advice or anything like that. It's just that sometimes a clear understanding of what will help and what won't is sometimes so much easier and better in the long run for your relationship, but also for your relationship with that child with special needs as well. Because that listening ear is going to help you understand your family member on the spectrum or with other special needs. So I hope that this has been a helpful video, that you really understand the heart behind it. Again, I did not want this to be a shame on you. I wanted this to be a video where you were like, okay, this is something that I can do that's tangible and that will help, versus this might not be. So I thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.